Welcome to the Reseller Island podcast. My name is Jake. I go by Jride Flips on social media, and this is Caleb Sells. Welcome to the island.
It's nice to be here. It's very very warm on this beautiful island.
Oh yeah,
in my garage.
Yep. Where I used to live, it's still 100 degrees, which is wild. But now up here in Layton area, it's like mid 80s every day now.
That's not too bad.
You're in Ohio, right? You're like, or are you in Pennsylvania? You're like on that border.
I'm in Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, not quite on the border. I'm in the Canton area, most notable for the Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there you go. Sweet. Yeah, I lived in Columbus each summer and, made it out to Lancaster. Have you ever been to Chillicothe?
Oh, probably passing through, but that's not a place I've ever frequented.
No, yeah, it's south of Columbus. It's an interesting town for sure. But yeah, just wanted to have you on the podcast today. I wanted to kind of talk about at least what I kind of know you for in the reselling YouTube space, which is being able to find and stack keywords that help your listings sell even quicker than they normally should. I wanted to actually, this is going to be a very visual podcast today. I'm hoping that you and I can show a few pieces, and then we can show how we find the keywords to be able to sell them quicker.
That sounds great. I do think that is like one of the strengths in my reselling business is taking a traditionally slow sell-through rate category, clothing, and I've maintained over 100% sell-through rate for well over a year now. If you combine my eBay and Poshmark sales, now that I'm cross-listing, in the last 90 days, like I currently have 1,400 items listed and between 1,600 and 1,700 sold in the last 90 days. And most people say that, clothing sells really slow, don't sell clothing. But 95% of my sales are clothing sales in that last 90 days. So,
yeah, I remember when you and I first, I don't want to say met, because this is actually our first time, like actually meeting over Zoom or whatever. But when we first, I don't know, the internet's a weird
acquainted.
Yeah, when we first came to know each other, I guess. We had like similar stores, but I was like everything seller, more focused on electronics, and then you were everything seller, more focused on clothing, and then you've gone almost completely clothing, and I've gone a lot deeper into electronics, and I've actually wholesaled you a few pieces of clothing as well to kind of get out of that space. Yeah, but now that I'm in northern Utah, the thrift stores here have pretty good deals on outerwear, so I'm actually stacking a few jackets, and
that's the place to do it. The outerwear is really nice money. I've definitely felt that in September. I'm guessing it's going to increase as we get closer to the end of the year and in the new year even. But September, my sales were up 50%, primarily from those heavier items selling that I'd been stacking up all summer, all spring. And then the first cold day in every little sector of the United States, everybody was like, "Oh, I need my jacket."
Yep. So on your heavier articles of clothing like jackets and stuff, what do you do shipping wise? What are your policies?
I typically do $9.95 on 1 to 3 poundish kind of things. Nothing that's like too bulky, because a lot of jackets you can still fold down pretty tight and they'll still go cubic rate 0.2 or 0.3 pretty cheap. Sorry if that's like nerdy for anybody watching, but basically just the smaller you can get the package, the cheaper you can ship it now with the post office, which is a great thing for resellers, especially doing clothing because it's more of a dense package. And then I do like have a $14.95 flat shipping and a $19.95 for, like a chunky Carhartt jacket. That's just never gonna compress down into a reasonable size. And if it goes to California, it is probably going to cost me about $12 to $15, just depending on what I can squeeze it down into.
Yeah. When I was a little bit heavier into clothing, back when I was selling a lot of polos and t-shirts and even dress shirts, I had a 12-ounce policy that was $587, and then I had it's labeled heavy clothes. That's just anything over 16 ounces, and I have that at $8.99. And then anything like more than 3 pounds, I actually just do calculated shipping on.
That's a really good way to do it. I have some videos on shipping on my account, and I always recommend anything over a pound. Like if you don't do it on the regular basis, just do calculated shipping, because now with the cubic rates, the buyers can still get pretty decent rates with the calculated shipping. Before that, we could ship it way cheaper via pirate ship or whatever, but the calculated rate may be like $19 to ship a pair of jeans, and that would turn off a lot of buyers.
Yeah. No, yeah, what I've actually been doing, getting into some nerdier and advanced stuff that confuses a lot of people sometimes. People, when I explain these like shipping methods, people always get so confused. But hopefully we're able to explain it in a nice way. So a lot of times when something is 3 pounds, when I put it into eBay, I put it in as 1 pound. So that way they get a 1 pound rate instead of a 3 pound, because it's going to be anywhere between $8 and $9. But if I put it as 3 pounds, especially if the dimensions are bigger, it's going to be like usually like 13 to 25 bucks. And no one's, like you said, no one's going to pay $19 for an article of clothing for shipping. Some people do. It's insane, but it happens. But if I
Depends
have
on
an
the item.
yeah. So I do $8.99 because the 1 pound rate across the country typically is between 8 and 9 pounds. So I just do $8.99. Or if I want to do it, it's basically the same, but I'll just do calculated 1 pound, 12 by 12 by 12 on anything that's like between 2 and 4 pounds. But
so that's basically like you're kind of avoiding the cubic rate, and you're just basically getting whatever the weight rate it would cost to go wherever. And then that between cubic or where it's going, some closer, some further, you're pretty much evening out to breaking even on that between the 1 and 3 pound difference.
Yeah, and then just to be clear for the viewers, when I actually do ship it, I change it from 1 pound to 3 pounds, and it ends up being within, because if I put 3 pounds, it's going to show that $14 to $20. No one's going to pay that. But if I put 1 pound, then it shows $8 to $9. And then when I ship it, I don't ship it as 1 pound. That would be fraud. I hate that word. Fraudulent and illegal.
Mail fraud.
Mail fraud. So I put it back to 3 pounds. And what it does is it usually hits somewhere in between $8 and $9. Sometimes it's like $11 if it's going all the way to like New Jersey or Maine or something like that for me. But it's always within that range.
And that's one of the benefits that people that are like us, full-time resellers, have, is that if I have to pay an extra $2 on shipping here and there, but my sell-through rate is higher because I'm providing an affordable price to all the customers, so I'm able to sell a lot more items. That $2 is just a cost of doing business and good business to your customers. Whereas if you sell one-off items, I would recommend actually packaging up the item, actually putting in the weight, actually putting in the dimensions, and then putting it as calculated, because if you sell one item and you take a $5 hit, that might be a 25-50% margin if you sell one-off random items. But when you sell thousands of items per year, the 50 cents, 75 cents that you make on a bunch of them way outnumber the $1 or $2 that you lose on the handful per week.
Or especially if you're an everything seller and you sell a VCR player and you charge $22 in shipping, and it only costs you $9 to ship it, and well, evens the scales. I didn't know we were going to get into shipping this much, but we'll keep rolling with it. With the increases coming, are you going to change anything?
I kind of buffed my increase last time they raised prices. So I'm doing $650 for pretty much anything that's 12 ounces or less. And I'm doing I have an $8.95 category, which I'm kind of phasing out, and it's becoming a $9.95 category. So I'm usually at $650 or $9.95. And I think with the rate increases that I'm still pretty much in the same ballpark there, and I don't have to really raise it too much, if at all.
Yeah, if you really understand your numbers and you can afford it, one of the best ways to increase sales is when these shipping rates go up, if you can keep yours the same, then it's going to improve the velocity of your sales because you're giving a better deal. So I've
Yep.
actually,
When people are scrolling, they're going to see $8.95, $8.95, $8.95, $8.95, and yours is $6.50. And even if the total price equals out the same thing, just psychologically, oh, I'm getting a deal on the shipping on this one.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I do with sunglasses and eyeglass frames. I have an 8 or below ounce policy that's $4.87. And a lot of my competitors are similar to me. Between some of them even have like $4.49 all the way up, but most of them are $6.99, $7.99, or like $8.95. And so when someone sees some Ray-Ban sunglasses that are $40 plus $8.95 shipping, and then they see that mine are $39.87 plus $4.87 in shipping, they'll go ahead and snag mine instead of the competitors. But if I increase my rate up by $1, I don't see my sell-through rate slowing dramatically, but just having that psychological, first off, having $39.87 instead of $40 for some reason just really gets people. I mean, for many reasons. And then having the cheaper shipping quote also helps too. Sometimes I even think $4.87 is better than free shipping.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I used to do so much free probably 95%. 2 years ago, 95% of my items were free shipping. And I just priced higher. And then when I got into clothing, because it's so much easier to ship clothing, it's so much more predictable. I just went to flat rate shipping. And now when I ship things that aren't clothing, I just use one of my shipping policies that is most closely related, because I feel like it does, like you said, it stands out on the listing rather than some random calculated rate of $12.87. Even $9.95 looks so much better than a $12.87 shipping charge. Even with my prices maybe $5 higher than the competitor, I think there is just something psychological, like, oh, it's under $10 shipping. Like those little thresholds do provide some psychological value in the sales world, all across the economy, not just on eBay, but eBay is one little, sector of that.
No, yeah, all psychology is wrapped into so much of sales and retail. It's wild. One of my favorite things to talk about is JCPenney. They were the first store to really because I guess back in the day, back in like the 1800s and early 1900s, like almost every single store was barter, pay what you agree on. And then JCPenney was like the first business to say, hey, this is the price, pay it or don't grab it, And so what they would do is they had these red heels and they put them out on the floor at $250 and no one bought them. And then they put a sign $500 with a slash through it, and then it said sale $300, and they started selling every single day at $50 more just because of the psychology behind, oh, I'm getting such a good deal, That's
I mean, I'm always looking for a deal, so I totally understand the psychology. I mean, even as resellers, like, we're looking for a deal. Like, I've not gone down this rabbit hole, but since we're just kind of, stream of consciousness here, like, I wonder if I subconsciously buy half price items at the thrift store more often than a full price item that would be like a similar margin or something, because I think I'm getting a deal, or like it was priced higher. Like, I wonder if I've just subconsciously done that. Probably have.
Oh, subconsciously, I've done it probably multiple times for sure. It just kind of happens. It's wild. The sales game is wild. It's awesome.
For sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Speaking of like making our listings stand out, we're talking about different pricing and shipping hacks, but I've seen you do at least a few videos on this where you talk about how you're able to use different tactics with RN numbers and materials to actually be able to price your items more accurately and to get them to move faster. If you want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I talk about this in probably every one of my videos, at least to some extent, because you can't, I guess if you had the perfect items, you can have over 100% sell-through rate, but I would say you have to be very intentional to have a high sell-through rate store, because it's hard to find enough like 100% home run items. I hear you say in your videos, like, the most amazing items, you could just post one photo and a terrible title and they will sell. And that's true, but there's only so many of those available or, easily accessible to us resellers. So when you find them, obviously grab them, and that's amazing. And, maybe that's an excuse to, not have to take that one so seriously because it's going to sell anyway. But for me, I'm trying to minimize my time sourcing, because the reason that I love this job is that I can spend way more time with my family. I have a wife and a daughter. And so for me, I do source a lot because you have to do that in this job. But for me to increase the amount of listings that I do, I can't just spend an extra day, an extra 2 days outsourcing. So I need to maximize every thrift store that I'm in and get every single item that fits my metrics, and I can't leave things behind. And so what that journey kind of led me down to was being able to find ways that I can sell items that are readily available to me all the time. And one thing that I found, and that was what you were kind of alluding to, is using the style code or different codes on the tags of brands that I find often to figure out what the actual model name is, to figure out the selling features that the brand markets. So like LL Bean markets this item as a blah, blah, blah. And then using their marketing tactics that they've already implemented into the item and the features that make that a good item, and using that to sell the items to eBay buyers that might be looking for something that fits that need. So style code, and then so basically a little rundown here. Jride told me to come prepared, so I came prepared. I'll just use one of my little examples here. I don't know if we're going to do more show and tell later, but here's an LL Bean fleece vest.
Nice.
And right here, it says item ID. You see that okay? Followed by 6 digits, 505974. So what I do is I go to Google and I type in LL Bean 509, whatever those numbers were. And it's going to tell me exactly what the model name is from the actual LL Bean website. So I click on that. There I can see what the manufacturer calls that color. So if I type this in, maybe they call this Scandinavian fur green. I mean, I don't know what it's called. I didn't look it up before this. But sometimes like certain colorways are more valuable in certain items. So knowing the name of the colorway is an advantage in the marketing of that item. Knowing the actual model name, I know from selling these so many times, this is the Mountain Classic fleece vest. Okay, so Mountain Classic is a word that's not going to be in somebody's title that just takes a picture of that and posts it. But somebody that knows LL Bean and wants to find, they went to REI and they saw that new on the shelf, they're $99. They're going to be like, oh, this is called the Mountain Classic fleece vest. They're going to go to eBay and they're going to type in LL Bean Mountain Classic fleece vest. And then there's the 12 of us that did that extra little research from them to choose from, instead of the 333 LL Bean fleece vest size XL green. And that's giving me a 1 in 12 chance of selling that item, as opposed to a 1 in 333 chance of selling that item, which is just made up numbers. But that is the logic of the style code mixed with the model name. And then, even further, maybe I'm on that page on the website of LL Bean and I see that it has a specific feature that makes it desirable. Can't think of anything on here. Like maybe they use like Polar Tech, whatever the technology is there. And so I wouldn't know that if I didn't see that on here, because it might not have that tag still. But because I saw that on the website, I can put Polar Tech in my title. And then people that are into outdoor wear know that that is a very well-made material that's going to keep them warm when they're out hiking or whatever else.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted you to go over. Thanks. So when you were doing that, I just typed in LL Bean fleece vest, and there's 4,300 active listings. When you go to sold, there's 768, and it looks like the average LL Bean used fleece vest is going for about $30, $25 plus shipping, somewhere in that range. Then you said it's an LL Bean Mountain Classic vest. when you type that in, it jumps to about $34 to $40 plus shipping. So you're adding a bit of value to it just with the Mountain Classic. And like you said, it's easier to find, and you're up against less competition. So there's 80 of those.
How many sold are there in the Mountain Classic?
80
versus
and
listed.
There's 263 listed and 80 sold. So you went from 4,300 listed, and what was it, 1,600 sold? No, it was like 700.
It was like 700. So it was like basically a non-existent sell-through rate to like a 25 to 30% sell-through rate.
Yeah,
But we
so
are just kind of getting into that season. So
it went from 18.5% sell-through rate, according to the model that you and I use. And then it went to LL Bean Mountain Classic 80 divided by 263. It went from 18 to 31%. So almost, like, literally doubled, almost doubled.
Yeah. And, that's an item that both of those will increase, as we come into the fall season.
Yep.
But yeah, I'd be curious, to check the sell-through rates on some of these other items that we share too, just to kind of see how big of a difference it is. Because if you're doubling your sell-through rate, that's, even if it's only, 18% to 30-some%, that's still twice as fast.
Yeah, you're doubling it, plus you're adding $5 or $10. And if you wanted to even more than double it, then you can just keep it at $30. And someone who's looking for a Mountain, whatever it was, is going to be like, oh, sweet, that's a deal. And they're going to purchase it even quicker. So a lot of different nuances to reselling. The nuts and bolts of reselling really is pick up good items and sell them at a reasonable price with good pictures and titles. And that's really the nuts and bolts. But then you can really, what we were talking about at the beginning with the psychology of pricing and shipping, and then using all these different little tactics can really improve things. But yeah, so today I found this for $10. It's a North Face puffer jacket. It's quilted. So most people would probably list this as the North Face blue puffer jacket. So let's do your little exercise here. The North Face blue puffer jacket blue. I'm seeing 8,500 listed. Holy cow. And 1,600 sold, which is a pretty awful sell-through rate. And I'm seeing a ton selling for 80, some selling for 30, some selling for 120, some selling for 14. So all across the board. So there's obvious differences. So the first thing that I do is I look to see if it already says the model number. Sometimes it'll straight up say like the North Face Nano Puffer, things like that. Or it'll say the North Face 700 Goose or the 700 Down jacket, things like that. But that wasn't there on this one. So I went and I found this tag. And I found right here, it says TB95 plus. So I typed that into eBay and I saw that 8 of those are listed. So it went from 8,100 to 8.001%. And they're actually 0 sold, which is interesting. But if we go to Google and we type in the North Face, what was that sequence? TB95 plus TN95. So this is selling brand new on Amazon for over $200. It says quilted. Prime deal days. Wow.
Yeah, even adding quilted to the title would drastically change the sell-through rate.
Yep. So now popping on this, it says about the item. It's showing me a style code C762-JK3. You can use that on Google and eBay to help you. There's just a ton of different things that's going to help you with this. But yeah, I'm seeing they're just calling this the North Face men's full zip, which is essentially every jacket they have. I'm
Yeah,
also seeing
I find that North Face is one of the ones that's more difficult. And so on the
yeah.
brands that are more difficult to find the model name, I actually have more success using Google Lens. And I don't understand how Google Lens finds the right brand. I it kind of blows my mind. Maybe it's just like the literal tone of the color, like the
Mhm.
shade of blue. Like that is a North Face shade of blue. I don't know. But I've actually had more success. I just listed a North Face, winter jacket yesterday. I couldn't figure anything out with the model number. I put it into Google Lens, and the first thing that popped up was the North Face website with the model name, exact same colorway, exact same everything. So that's kind of like my backup plan
Mhm.
when those style codes don't come to anything, because sometimes they don't. I mean, sometimes the styles are just old enough that there's not that data readily available on Google, or it just takes too much digging, or there's no style code at all on a lot of items. I mean, the ones we're
Yeah.
showing today do have a style code. That's the whole point, to use that information. But a lot of items, don't have one at all. Like, um, Eddie Bauer is one. Like, I always struggle with the style code on there, but they're like high end winter jackets, or vintage like Y2K late 90s winter jackets can still sell for really good money. And Google Lens is my best friend on those to try to figure out. They have like a Yukon line, they have Weather Edge, they have Weather Edge Pro, Weather Edge Plus. All those things are like different price buckets on eBay if you type them in. But if you don't know what you have, then you wouldn't know which one, how to price your item.
Because the bottom line is, if you list an Eddie Bauer puffer jacket, and if you do the bare minimum of keywords and you put like hooded, you're gonna sell that for at least $40 plus shipping, maybe 50, maybe 70, maybe 80. But then if you know the different tech that they use or the different style codes and all that stuff, you're only going to increase your sell-through rate and the price. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you get more money for your LL Bean with the style code?
I think I think it's another psychology thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's also a metrics thing. You're getting more direct search. Like, if somebody is looking for a specific thing, you're way more likely to sell a specific thing to somebody that's looking for that same specific thing. No matter how many results there are, if somebody's looking for a certain model of something, if there's two side by side and one says the model name and the other one doesn't say the model name, they're going to go with the one that says the model name that they're looking for. So
Yeah.
that's just like the very most basic example. But I think even so, the professionalism of your listing, if somebody is scrolling North Face jackets and they see Thermoball 3-in-1 hooded high vent ski jacket, they're like, oh, that person knows what they have, and that sounds like a really nice jacket. Whereas North Face puffer jacket, the nothing about what's written there really tells you any information. And as we all know, as eBay sellers, getting people to click into your listing and look through every single picture to come up with their own information about what you have, or even reading the description or the item specifics, is completely non-existent. It's first photo and title,
Yep.
and if that fails, you're not selling that item. There will be people that do go in there and check, but I would say majority of people, first photo, title, maybe click through a couple pictures. If you're lucky, they check the measurements and see if it fits them. And so I think adding that model name just adds so much appeal to that item as just a listing on eBay when people are scrolling, because
Yeah.
it gives people a sense of comfort, like, oh, that is what it says it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a pretty recent video about this topic a little bit. I gave an example of when someone's dog chews their TV remote. They're most likely not going to replace the TV. They're just going to replace the remote. And they're probably not, if they have a Sony TV, they're probably not going to search Sony TV remote because there's just so many of them. And the chances of you buying one for a separate model that doesn't work for yours is pretty high. So what people do is they type in the exact model number on the remote that just stopped working. And then boom, you're able to capture that buyer. But then if someone just got a raise at work and they wanted to improve their TV, they're not going to type in the model number of the TV because, first of all, they want a bigger one. So the bigger one's going to be a different model number. Unless they really, really, really are loyal to the brand, they're typically just going to type in 65-inch TV or 70-inch TV, whatever size of TV they want. And so you have to understand like which buyer your listing is for. There's a lot of listings. So like these jackets are perfect examples that are listings for the narrow searchers and the broad browsing searchers. Because if you stack your North Face jacket with thermal ball and Goose 700 down, the people that are searching for thermal ball are most likely going to buy your item. But there's also a huge chance that someone just types in North Face puffer jacket and that person ends up finding and buying your item. But you capture both of them when you stack the keywords and list it properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that jacket, like quilted, is another thing people want because they want that look of like the lots of different little puffs on there, not just like the big chunky puffs.
Bars and stuff.
And then oh, where else? Oh, and even goose down. I mean, that goose is down, like any outdoors person will just type in goose down puffer, and there you're already, you know, probably ahead of 50 to 75% of your competitors on eBay with just that basic thing that is literally right on the tag. And that's a very desirable feature on any jacket.
Yeah. And especially
another thing, just
go for it.
No, you go ahead. I'm going to switch back to my item just to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, especially when people are willing to spend premium dollars. Like if you just search the North Face puffer and you scroll long enough, you'll probably find a thermal ball that's underpriced. But people who want a thermal ball that type it in are willing to spend the extra $15, $25, even $100 sometimes. And so that's how you're able to get those prices. But yeah, I don't know, keywords and knowing model numbers and all that stuff definitely increases sell-through rate and sales conversion and sales price, which is the name of retail sales or reselling sales.
For sure. So all I was going to say, just to kind of wrap this one up, like just being a nerd and really diving deep into the clothing world, I just kind of want to give people a taste of, you know, even a 30% sell-through rate on Mountain Classic vest. This will be a 200% sell-through rate minimum in my store this fall and winter, and I'll give a few more reasons why. It is size XL, which is not the best size, but it's a very good size. It's not really adding or taking away, but small, extra small, maybe even medium is probably taking away. And of course, even bigger sizes are going to be better in something like this. But the thing that's really good about this green and purple color is just very unique. If you type
that's what I think about when I think of LL Bean. I think of that colorway when I think of LL Bean.
This is one of their very classic color combinations. They also have like that brown and golden mustard color combination, and then they have this green and purple combination, and then you have like the like cherry red color, and those are like the three different colors that kind of come to mind with LL Bean. And also, I have no keyword for this, but this little Patagonia knockoff tag, people see that and they just, it's like what is in with outdoor wear right now. I don't know why, but this tag, I don't know what the keyword is, but I know if I put my photo in a way where this is like somewhat visible, that's going to really pop off the page with this colorway. And also they make these in different versions. This one is a full zip, which is another thing that adds it above the other vests that are just a pullover, because not everybody wants to pull something over their head. They just want to throw this over their shirt. And that is a selling feature. And then the last thing that I'll say is that I don't know if this will come through on camera, but it's not fleece on the inside and the outside. The inside is fleece. The outside is like this knit material, which Patagonia calls that the better sweater. If you've ever found a Patagonia better sweater, this is exactly the same material. They totally just knocked it off. I mean, I don't know if it's better or worse quality, so I guess I shouldn't say knocked it off, but they made their version of it. And so I wouldn't recommend putting better sweater in the title necessarily because it's not a better sweater. But I would probably recommend putting that in somewhere in the item specifics, because somebody that's searching better sweater, not Patagonia better sweater, is going to be just as happy paying 60% of the Patagonia price for this just as nice, really cool, really nice logo, all those things. So just kind of nerding out a little bit on the clothing items, for that's kind of my world here. But style code, getting the model name, full zip, mountain classic, having the picture with that logo visible. When I take the picture for this item, it's going to look nicer because I'll lay it down, but that's going to be in the very center of my frame. And then I'll make sure that it's like cropped right so that people can see it's full zip. And I'm basically just going to sell them with the first photo and the title. I will put in item specifics because, I want to get those search results too. But that item's going to be sold by the title and the first photo. And I would be surprised if that lasted more than, 2-3 weeks in my store, to be honest.
And there's just so many factors into being able to sell that quicker, and it comes with all those keywords and all the bells and whistles, I guess you could call it. It's what they use in car sales, but you can use it in clothing sales too. Now, you do have to be careful when it comes to that better sweater recommendation. So you have to tread lightly and make sure that you're not breaking any laws or things like that. It's usually not that serious. So I do this all the time with my Western shirts, for example. So Wrangler has a line called Brush Popper. It's made for your working class cowboy that's baling hay and doing a ton of stuff in the brush. It's a bit thicker of a material and it's longer, so it will stay tucked in when you're lifting stuff over your head or you're reaching over to grab things. And they made that technology, they made those soups, I guess we can call it, specifically for that working cowboy, that working farmer. And then they made it a line called Brush Popper. 17-year-olds today call any Aztec or geometric print on a Western shirt, they call them all brush poppers. So I'm able to get Western shirts, Wrangler. I always do it on Wrangler if it's a popping colorway or design. I'll even throw it on an Arizona shirt, on all those different Western shirts. You can throw Brush Popper and it increases your sell-through rate by so much, like literally so much. I'll get a Western shirt that a lot of other resellers will sell for $24, and I'll sell it for $89 because it says Brush Popper in it, even if it's not the actual Wrangler Brush Popper. But on another example, and a little more into my world, a lot of people will put Walkman on non-Sony MP3 players, and those get taken down really fast because the Walkman is a Sony. It's owned by Sony. It's TM'd by Sony, and they will take anything down. So like a lot of people will have a Craig CD player, and they'll put Craig CD player Walkman, and it's not a Walkman because it's not Sony, and those get taken down. So you can use other brands' features, and you can use what people call different things in your title. You just have to be very careful. And the first time you get a warning or a Vero, just never do it again.
Yep, that's really good advice. I mean, as content creators, I'm sure that people are, in your comments all the time saying, this is a Vero, that's a Vero, this is a Vero, that's a Vero. Yep. And, I don't discredit or not believe them.
I sell Beachbody all the time. I sell P90X all the time.
For the most part, eBay is not going to suspend your account for a one-time offense on a very random item. Now, if you built an entire business on misleading item titles, then maybe, you're going to have a problem. But from my experience, once I get one of those things, then I am very, very cautious and very, very aware. But until I personally receive one myself, within reason, like there are certain things that are just not true. Like I'm not going to put non-true information in my title. And that's why I wouldn't put Patagonia in my title. Even with like Kuji sweaters, the ones that aren't Kuji, I see a lot of people putting Kuji in the title, and I'm sure that Kuji, I'm sure that they could come in and Vero all those in one day. I've never heard of that happening. I personally don't put it in my title. I put in 3D knit, geometric, chunky knit, whatever. But all that being said, there are still ways to put those into your listing so they can come up in search. And so that's why I'd recommend with like using that better sweater example. I would probably put that in like the theme or features, because that is something that's recognizable about that thing. But I'm not trying to list this as a Patagonia item. I'm just trying to explain the item best by using that type of material. That's the only thing I know how to call it. I don't know what else to call it. It's like that knit on the outside, fleece on the inside.
Uh-huh.
To me, that's like a better sweater material.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to explain that to the buyer. So I think it comes almost back to the intention. And then as far as like the actual like nitty gritty, is it, you know, good on eBay? Is it not good on eBay? Go with, if you get a Vero, you need to not do it because you don't want to be putting yourself at unnecessary risk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of podcasts and reselling content creators talked about this pretty heavily a while back, when they would search for something and then get something similar or even completely different when they searched for it. For example, you can search like Lego Star Wars, and then all of a sudden, you know, a video game pops up when you're looking for Legos, and it's like, oh, what the heck? But I'm invested into eBay, and I get their quarterly reports, and then I also get to listen to their board questions every quarter. And in one of those sessions, they did a fairly deep dive on Shop the Look, and they said they were shocked by how many people type Patagonia jacket and scroll through, look through some stuff, click on this, and then it says right below it, similar item, and then they click on a North Face jacket and buy that one. They were shocked by how often people were typing in Patagonia and buying the North Face, for example. Or they were shocked by how many people were typing in Sony VHS player and then walking away with a Panasonic one. And so they started to mess around and make some tweaks and showing people what they think they actually want, even if it wasn't exactly what they were searching for. And they were finding that their sales conversion was actually going up dramatically. And so this was a topic that was actually making a lot of people in our community quite angry. You know, it's like, especially when we're trying to list something and selling similar off of other items, which for me personally, they like went hard on this for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was trying to list Sony RMT-V504A DVD VCR combo player remote controls, and it was a few more steps to find the exact one. But when it comes from a buying perspective, especially in clothing, people will search for one thing and then end up buying another. It happened to me all the time. So before I even started selling on eBay, I was actually a pretty big buyer. During the pandemic, I actually bought a ton of basketball cards, and I would search for my favorite players, and then I'd click on a listing, and then it would present to me a different player in the same colorway or same brand or subcategory of cards, and like, oh, I'll pick this one up instead. And it just makes a lot of sense from a buyer perspective why they would do that.
Yeah, and I actually think that gives us sellers an advantage. Like, it is kind of annoying when you're trying to do the research on eBay, like the sell through rate's wonky because it's not showing you the same results that you want to see, or you're trying to find that sold listing so that you can sell similar off of. Those things are a little annoying, but it's actually better for us as sellers because there's going to be more sales on the platform because they figured out what the buyers actually want to buy. And it
Yep.
really plays into the favors of those that are experts at eBay. I mean, I'm trying to be an expert. I wouldn't necessarily put that crown on my head or anything, but I'm trying to understand eBay the best that I can. And I'm going to have the advantage because my item's going to have the keywords that do make it pop up underneath the Patagonia Better sweater. Oh, let's just buy this LLB one in this cool green and purple colorway for $35 instead of spending $45 on this Patagonia one that has a, pilling on the collar. But it really plays into the advantage of really knowing how to list items effectively, what terms are actually being searched, and how people use eBay. Because when the search is not so pinpoint exact, yours are the listings that are actually going to stand out above the other ones that are just North Face puffer jacket. That's going to get buried in the search, but with those extra features, it actually gives us an advantage in the new search on eBay because it's not as narrowed down.
So I sell a lot of flat irons and curling irons, and I'm actually able to increase the sell-through rate on those with the item specifics and the title by putting how hot the curling iron or the flat iron actually gets. a lot of people aren't, a lot of consumers aren't super brand loyal when it comes to flat irons. A lot of people are, but I've actually noticed that a lot of people only care about how hot it gets. So if you can put heats up to 480 degrees Fahrenheit, some people just search 500-degree flat iron, and then yours is right there. But kind of what we were talking about just barely too. It just tells me how much more important promoted listings are. I know a lot of people are super against promoted listings, and you got to do what's best for you and your business. But when you type in Patagonia jacket and you click on one, and then the majority of the similar items or items you may like, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'd say every single one of them are promoted listings. Everyone thinks that, oh, I use promoted listings.
Based on my calculations, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. So I think most people think that the only function of promoted listings is to get your items to the top of the search, and that's only one of several dozen functions of promoted listings. Like they get you, like if you have stuff in your cart before you check out, they have, hey, these are some things you also might like. If you're looking at an item that you're thinking about purchasing, hey, here's some things that you also might like. All of those are promoted listings. So not only are you going to increase your sales by ranking higher in search, but you're also going to show up in more areas on eBay, which some of the places you're being put aren't the best place to be put, but a lot of times it does convert into an extra sale that you would not have gotten that day or that week if you did not promote your listing. So do you promote all of your listings, or some of them, or none of them? What's your strategy on it?
Yeah, all my items are promoted. I would say 99.9 of them are promoted at 5%. Occasionally I'll do less if it's like a super expensive item where that's like actually significant amount of money difference, to maybe do 2%, the minimum. If it's like a really good item, I know it's going to sell, and it's like $200 or more, like, okay, I'll just save the little percentage and, put that in my pocket. But most of the time I don't even really think about it, because I just, click select all when I'm uploading my drafts and change it all at one time to 5%.
So what do you say to the person typing right now? If your strategy to find all these keywords are so effective, why are you promoting?
I want every single opportunity. I want the opportunity from my keywords. I want the opportunity from the model name. I want the opportunity from the brand that's marketed itself as a good brand. I want the opportunity from a good picture, somebody that's a visual person. I want the opportunity from eBay wanting to sell my item because they want to make a little bit extra money. It's in eBay's best interest to sell promoted items. They make more money. eBay's trying to make money. eBay helps me make money. So the more that I can sell, the more it helps them and the more it helps me. And so if they're giving me a tool to sell more items, I want to utilize those tools to the best of my ability. So that would be my initial comment. I'm sure we can go back and forth, me and potential commenter.
So yeah, I promote all of my listings, and I promote them at a relatively low percentage. I talk about them. So I have got my promoted listings up to 3.1% across all of my items. And I don't wait 30 days or a week. Just everything that gets listed, it just automatically gets promoted at 3.1%, primarily so I can rank higher in search, but also so I can get those extra views on, hey, you might like this, because eBay's algorithm is so good. Facebook's algorithm is so good. All these algorithms are amazing at what they do. And luckily, as consumers, we have these things called privacy laws and protection laws, so they can't take all of our data. But like, eBay tracks your mouse movement. It tracks how long you stay on a certain page, as opposed to clicking away from different pages, and it all factors in. Well, one thing that I wish people understood more is that the algorithm isn't for sellers, it's for buyers. So every time that you go onto eBay and look around for things, it's tracking what you do and how you spend more or less money, and that's all it cares about. eBay definitely wants to serve you the best items, so we need to have the best policies and pictures and items and quality and descriptions and things like that. That's only going to help us. But all eBay is doing is trying to get Caleb to come to their website and then leave that website spending as much of his money as possible. And that's what the algorithm is for. Hi, wife.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying with like getting the most benefit from being a great seller is if they're just trying to sell items, I'm getting every single opportunity to sell because they are making the search for the buyer. And that's a good thing for people that want to sell, because more things in general are going to sell on eBay if they're optimizing the algorithm for the buyer that's going to actually buy and spend money. It doesn't help if your thing ranks in search, but it's not what they're looking for. That will never help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. This has been great so far. I love talking about the nerdier side of eBay and sales and everything. It's great. Just because I really do come from the camp of all of this stuff matters significantly less if you're just picking up good items. But like you said, that's one of the hardest parts of the job. And so I would spend more time researching and finding better items. But for someone in your situation who wants to spend more time with his wife and daughter, which is amazing and admirable, you can just flip that and be like, okay, how can I squeeze more money and sell the items that are readily available to me? And I think both, if you have the time, why not do both? Why not just find incredible items, do the work to make connections and find these items, and then do the work to list them even better than your competition and get them sold?
100%. And that's kind of where I found the sweet spot currently. Is I'm still picking up really, really good items. But we all make mistakes. We all buy items that aren't that good. Can you still sell that item even if it's not for the profit that you wanted? I would rather sell something and get my money back than just never sell it.
Yeah. So do you have any sort of markdown strategy or promotion strategy or things like that?
Yeah. So what I'm currently doing is I have a software that helps me manage my eBay inventory, almost like a kind of background virtual assistant, and it's lowering the price on my item every 30 days by 5%. So depending on the price of the item, my kind of thought process was it's about 10% every 90 days. Of course, it's going to be different depending on what the starting price is, because 5% is different over 3 months because it's 5% off of the new price every 30 days, if that makes sense. So it lowers the price by 5% every month on average. If I have over 100% sell-through rate, I'm actually selling items faster than 3 months on average. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those items don't actually really go down in value that much or ever hit that 10% off in 3 months. And then once something's been in my store for 6 months, usually I'll run it for like 2 weeks out of the month. I'll do like a very, very aggressive markdown sale on 6-month-old items or more. Let's say 30, 40, sometimes 50 if I'm feeling frisky, percent off. And that's why I switched to the different shipping method, because I can still be profitable on 50% off of 20, so down to 10 plus shipping. I can still be profitable by $3-4 instead of a free shipping when I start to do those aggressive markdown sales to keep my store healthy. Then I'm just eating losses on those items.
I feel like I'm watching a 1 foot flipper video. This is awesome. He does
is that his style?
He does 5% every day, and then he talks about why free shipping isn't the best because of that reason. Because if you have something that's $100 free shipping and you do 10%, then it goes down to $90, and like your shipping is baked into that. So it's a true 10%. But if you have something that's $100 plus shipping and you do 10% off, it's really more like a 7.5% off when it comes to the money coming into your bank account, because it doesn't affect the shipping price. That still stays the same. So if you have free shipping across all your items, you have to do more work of being like, okay, wait, do I want this? This one's okay to be a true 10% off, but this one can't because of like buy cost and things like that. But I love numbers, and this is one of the biggest common math mistakes that people make. If you have something that's $100 and you put it 10% off 3 times, that's not 30% off, because the first time it's 10% off and it goes down to 90. Now you're doing 10% off of 90, which brings it down to 81, because 10% of 90 is only $9. Then if you're doing it 10% off again, you're only taking off $8.10, which ends up being what, $72.90, something like that.
Yeah.
So now it's 27.9% off, not 30. And I know that, like, oh, that's pretty small margin, doesn't make a huge deal, but especially when you're talking about thousands of dollars and things like that, it's a huge deal. So
yeah, and that's on $100 item. You know, those $5% increments on a lot of the stuff that I sell in that $25 to $40 range, it's pretty much negligible. I mean, it does add up over time, like you're saying, like it is thousands over the year, but it's also thousands in cash flow that I'm getting back from being able to sell those items efficiently and effectively, instead of just having those, you know, say I pay $5 at the thrift store and it sits in my inventory for a year. You know, the lost opportunity costs on that, and not having that investment back is, you know, not worth the, you know, 5% 3 times over 3 months on $25, which is going to be way less than even the 27%. Plus, that's going to be like way, yeah.
Plus, this demographic is smaller than I think the average reseller thinks it is. But there is a demographic of buyers that just sort low to high. And if yours is 12 cents cheaper because of that 5% off than your competition, then yours gets bought instead of theirs. That's why I do what I do with shipping prices, because not only does it psychologically help me because it's 87 instead of a complete dollar amount, but it also makes it so I'm like 6 cents or 12 cents cheaper than my competition, and those buyers that do just sort low to high will buy my item because it's $4.87 when my competition's was $4.99. But all the little things add up to millions of dollars at the course of a lifetime. So it's really important.
That's right.
But yeah, no, yeah, all these tips have been awesome. I want to talk a little bit more about your content, your journey in that. I noticed you're doing a little bit more short form, like TikToks and Instagram, right?
Yeah, I just kind of recently I'm trying it out a little bit. I think for me, like, I really love teaching, and it's very it comes relatively natural for me, especially because, like, with the things that I do know well, I feel like I do know them pretty well. So it doesn't take a lot of extra time researching and effort to come on and teach.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. But as far as just like a pure, like, financial dollar per hour, whatever, like, I would be infinitely better off just reselling more than making content. And that's totally fine, because I love to teach. I love to help people. And, you know, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy meeting other cool people in the content space. And then also the people in my community that actually show up when I do lives and do videos, and, you know, friends that I've made along the way. It's invaluable. So there's still so much more valuable than just the dollar amount. But I noticed myself getting a little stuck in the rut of just trying to do the same type of things. Didn't really have the creativity that I wanted to have. I have previous video production background. Before I even started YouTube, I had all these really fun, crazy, cool ideas that I thought would be really great. But the truth is, I don't have the energy or capacity to pull many of them off. Yeah. And so what I realized is, hey, maybe in a 60-second format, I can do a little bit more of this creative side that kind of takes me out of the kind of grind of reselling. You know, I still love reselling, but it is just a lot of the same work over and over again. Outsourcing is when it's, you know, that little dopamine of different, what am I going to find? I found this crazy deal. You know, you get that when you go outsourcing, but, you know, I've purposely tried to make my sourcing as short as possible so that I can be available for my family. So I need other ways to kind of scratch that itch of things that aren't just the same thing all the time. So yeah, I'm kind of dabbling with the short form, but I still really love teaching. So, like, my live streams are some of my favorite things to do, because I can just kind of do things like this, where I'm just kind of breaking down the nitty gritty of eBay, how to sell stuff. especially in men's clothing or men's clothing adjacent things. That's kind of my world right now.
I love lives too. Lives are the best. But yeah, to keep it kind of still relevant to the audience, the majority of you are not content creators, but it's important to increase your streams of income. And the best way to do that is to keep it relative to what you're actually doing. So a lot of people are successful in starting a reselling business and then also starting a lawn care company on top, or starting a pest control company on top, or going private label on top. But if you can keep things within the job that you're already doing that are super relative to it, then you're going to have more time to do it. And it's going to feel like, that's probably the most is like, so I'm doing content about reselling. And so it's like, oh, I'm doing my job. So, I'm not like, oh, I got to put reselling on hold and do this. Like, it's all just the same thing. And so like Tech and Sports is an example of that. He's a reseller and he sold a lot of men's clothing, and he realized if he puts measurements in his photos, he gets more sales. And he's like, oh, I can just make my own ruler and sell it to people. And then boom, that's another extension to his business that is still within his business. And so yeah, like maybe you can do content, maybe you can sell a ruler, maybe you can come up with a tax notebook that will help resellers. Just anything that's like reselling adjacent that you can add an income stream is pretty cool. And I think it's important to have those income streams.
Can you still hear me okay? I think I glitched out for a little second there.
You were glitching a little bit, but yeah, I can definitely hear you.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, I was tracking with what you were saying. Like if you keep it in the same industry, you can be way more focused at the things that you're doing, and you're not, using the example I've heard you say in your videos, you're not chasing two rabbits at the same time. At least if it's two rabbits, they're like going back to the same nest if it's all under reselling.
Yeah, that's nice. But yeah, no, this reselling game is really, really awesome. I'm really hoping that sometime I can get you and Surfs Up Fines on a live just here on like the reseller channel. The Reseller Island channel would be sweet. You two should think about starting a podcast. But I think you two would be great co-hosts because you guys are like similar personalities. You sell the same stuff, similar parts of the country, but different enough. I think,
me, Surfs, and K-Way Shop did a live stream on my channel ranking 75 clothing brands in a tier list from S through D. So if anybody out there thinks that would be fun, that one was super fun for me to do because it was just like, it was like nerding out on eBay, but then it like took the eBay, like everybody complaining about eBay and all the criticism of eBay out of it. And it was just like the actual items themselves. And it was like getting nerdy about that stuff. And yeah.
So what were a few of the S tiers?
I think we had a few S tiers. We had Filson.
Filson, yep.
Jenko.
Coogee make it up there?
I don't think we ranked Coogee, but it for sure would have been S tier.
Yeah.
I'm just pulling up my Instagram page real quick because I posted the final tier list.
Do you sell any J. Crew?
Okay, so I do sell J. Crew. Really quick, like, for the S tier, we have Arc'teryx, Filson, Viore, Icebreaker, which I would not put at that S tier personally, Roback, and Jenko. So those were the S tier brands.
I find a decent amount of Roback here. A lot of golfers in Utah. A lot of rich golfers in Utah.
Yeah, those are sweet.
Yeah, especially if they have a crazy colorway. They sell for $80-$90 for a polo like the same day. It's wild.
Yeah, that is crazy. So as far as J. Crew, just kind of like we'll go right back into that conversation we were having before, where like I pick up probably 3 to 5% of J. Crew that I find, but there are specific things within J. Crew that I pick up almost every time, and there's certain things I pick up every time, and there's little pockets of value for sure in brands like that. That's one of the things that keeps my business going, is knowing what those little pockets of profit in those brands you can find every single place are. Just one quick little bolo on J. Crew. It's called an oarsman fisherman roll neck sweater. It has the big cross cable knitting fisherman stitching across the front. It has a roll neck sweater, so it's like not a hem like this. It's just loose and it just kind of like sits there and kind of rolls out. Usually in like dark green or dark brown. Sometimes they're made in USA. And last year, I mean, I haven't looked them up this year. I'm guessing they'll still, be pretty good. But last year I sold one in one day for I think like 90 to $100 or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's really not that uncommon of an item, in my opinion.
I feel like a lot of people complain about LL Bean and J. Crew, like, oh, you can't sell that. But I see you sell LL Bean all the time, and I feel like a lot of people group J. Crew and LL Bean together, and clearly it sells. And then I talk about the opposite of that all the time, like Dyson vacuums, really anything Dyson sells incredibly well, but there's still 3 to 5% of Dyson models and products that don't sell at all. It's like you can't just pick up every single Dyson and you can't pass on every single J. Crew. Like you have to find, what's like that's one question that I get asked all the time. Like, oh, should I just pick up every single North Face? Like, no. Like this North Face long sleeve tee, $8 free shipping on a good day. But it says North Face on it. But yeah, pass on this one. But if you find a North Face puffer jacket, I would still even say look it up. But a North Face puffer jacket is definitely going to sell well, while the t-shirt, long sleeve t-shirts aren't going to sell well at all in used condition. If you found this new, probably sell for $30. But yeah, used condition ain't going anywhere.
I'm kind of curious about, now that you're kind of picking up some outerwear pieces, like what did you pay for that North Face at the thrift store?
So this was from the Deseret Industries. It was $10, 15% off if you do a survey coupon for clothing. This is a dope one. This is a vintage skier jacket, SKYR. Great 90s colorway. Sells for about $75. I got this for $8. This is a spider. So I was gonna use this as an example. So this is the Dermizax. I've never even heard of that. But if you see,
yeah, let's get a zoom in on that.
It says spider.
I gotta educate myself here.
And then if it says any additional titles or words, those are definitely what you want to look up when you're comping and when you're listing these. So some people have that listed as a ski jacket. Other people have it listed as a motorcycle jacket. I forgot what we listed it as, but when you type in that keyword, that jacket sells for a minimum of $75, all the way up to like $300, depending on the size and colorway and stuff. So that one was $17.99 at a Savers, but 20% off, so it ended up being like $15 or something like that. But yeah, my outerwear is typically between $8 and $15. Usually between 10 and 12 is more accurate. And the average sales price is usually between 40 and 60. Sometimes you get the thermal balls though, stuff like that go for hundreds.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've learned a lot. Like Columbia, if you just search around on their puffers, usually sometimes on the arm or a tag, you'll see it'll say like CB 650. Typing that into the eBay machine definitely helps too.
Yeah, Eddie Bauer puts those numbers on there, and some North Face as well.
Eddie Bauer. Yeah, I've actually been picking up. I find a lot of Eddie Bauer puffer jackets, and they're easier to identify because they do the CB 650s and stuff like that, or the CB 4.
And if you find First Ascent, Travex, or there's one more that's like an orange logo. I don't remember what it is, but those are 3 lines. Like putting that in your title, definitely higher sales price, definitely higher sell-through rate on those. And then Weather Edge, like I mentioned before, is like they're different layers of how waterproof and how technical it is. There's the Weather Edge Pro, and then Weather Edge Plus, and that will actually say that like on the sleeve, like at the edge of the sleeve. on Eddie Bauer. So just within Eddie Bauer puffer jackets, we just broke down 9 different combinations
exactly
that would sell above average, in my opinion.
Yep. And then if it's quilted, it sells faster, things like that. And this is actually why I gravitate towards electronics so much, because all model numbers are just keywords. It's really nice. You can just know the exact value of something by typing in, instead of typing in Sony Walkman, you type in Sony Walkman WM-X250, and you're like, oh, this particular Sony Walkman sells for $300 for some reason, while the other ones only sell for $19.95. And then it's upon you to do the research and know why it sells for 300. Maybe they only made 1 million of them instead of 800 million like other models. Maybe it has an anti-break rubber winder that just lasts for 80 years instead of 8, things like that, but I don't know. Keywords, man. Keywords is the.
Yeah, and I definitely miss that about, selling certain items like that. I mean, it's so nice to flip over a camera and type in that model name, and on eBay, all the search results are, for the most part, obviously they're playing with search a little bit, but for the most part, you're getting exactly what you search for. It's very easy to calculate sell-through rate. It's very difficult sometimes to calculate sell-through rate on a J. Crew sweater, depending on what size you type in, or if you put the color in or not, or if you put the material in or not. You could get 5 very different sell-through rates, and it's up to you to determine that data and figure out if that's a good item or not. Whereas with the electronics, it can be, not always, but it can be a lot more clear cut. And just to kind of tie in some other parts of our conversation, one thing that I noticed with selling more clothing this year, being primarily clothing seller, is that the summer just is a lot more difficult than when I sold everything. And so next year I am going to be making some changes to branch out away from clothing just for those summer months, because that's when the garage sales in my area are the best. So that cheap, good inventory is more readily available than it is all fall, winter, and spring. And also, the little garage selling I did this year, I just yielded so much better results than just sticking in the clothing category. Because let's take Patagonia, for example. They have their baggies shorts. They do sell fast, great selling item, but still probably a $25 to $35 item, depending on the pattern, colorway, size, inseam, style code, how you market it, how you photo it, whatever. But you're never going to sell that for $100. Brand new, it's not worth $100. But a Patagonia jacket could be anywhere from $50, $60 up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars, depending on the model name. And so just looking at those 2 items within a brand that people easily know, you can see why it's going to be much more difficult in summer. I never dip below 100% sell-through rate in summer, but it was harder because every single item is cheaper. Every pair of shorts is cheaper than every jacket or every pair of pants, and every t-shirt and polo is cheaper than the sweaters and jackets in the exact same brands. So I could think I hit the grail of Patagonia items, and if it's all short sleeve t-shirts, I would still probably pick it up depending on the price because it's such a strong brand. But if I found that many Patagonia sweaters and jackets, I would think that is the best day of my life. Yeah. And so you're just extrapolating that across your entire business when you are in the clothing world. Whereas with some other items, let's say electronics, sell-through rates might be down a little bit because of just natural buying tendencies are dipping in the summer. People are spending money on vacations and doing other things and kids' sports and not just browsing on eBay. But for the most part, the type of item that sells is the same all year round. You're just going up and down with the trends of the seasons for overall retail buying. Whereas with clothing, the seasons determine so much of what's selling that when you're only selling shirts or short sleeve shirts and shorts, you are at a big disadvantage for, keeping your profit and your dollar per item and your average sales price and all these little metrics that you try to track to make sure you're doing well. It is more challenging. So I actually bumped up 8 listings per day for a big majority of the summer. And what, in hindsight, what I'm realizing is I could have made more money with less effort selling other things, most likely.
That's why I don't, sometimes like different arguments and things like that can kind of bug me, because especially in business, you want to have hard and fast rules. You want policies that are black and white, but nothing truly is. So we're all aware that there's this huge debate between niche selling and everything selling. A couple of key points from the beginning of the podcast is it's a lot easier to learn about all the different LL Bean models if you're only sticking to clothing, and even better if you're only sticking to outerwear. It's going to be harder to learn about blue line VCR players from Panasonic, and better sweater from Patagonia, and Walkmans, and different golf club forges. Like you can increase the sell-through rate and the sales price between a 4 mil and a 6 mil forge on wedges, things like that. It's significantly harder to be that expert and know all of those different things. But if you're only selling clothing, and if you're only selling outerwear, it's feast and famine during the winter and the summer. So I like what you're doing. You're not just like, oh, I'm just a clothing reseller, I'm a niche seller, I've had so much success in niching down. There's also periods and different seasons and time periods where it's like, oh, I'm going to pick up cameras. I mean, hopefully, I would hope that all clothing sellers are picking up sealed Pokemon games, no matter what. But then like definitely like you focusing on like, oh, I am going to sell some cameras, probably all year round, but when I find them in thrift stores. But I'm going to be hunting for them during the summer because they are everywhere and they sell really well.
Yeah. And for me, it's just dollar per hour. I mean, in the summer, my dollar per hour is lower because those items are cheaper. And so what can I do that increases my dollar per hour? If I'm going to make less sales and I know I'm going to make more money in the fall, I don't want to be working more in the summer. I want to be working less, because that's not the time I'm making the most money. If I make the most money in Q4, I want to work the most hours in Q4. But being a person that respects balance and respects my family and wants to spend more time with family, I can't just push it pedal to the metal all year round. So if I'm going to push it hard in Q4, I want to take the time off where I'm making the least in the summer. But if I'm not selling items that are expensive enough and I'm not making enough money, then I can't do that. I have to work more. So this summer I worked really hard, and next summer I plan on still working hard because I'm a hardworking person, but working less hours when I'm not making as much money, so that I'm feeling refreshed at this time of year when sales are rolling and I need to be, working harder, working better, putting more effort in. I have that energy, and even that like social energy. I've invested that time with my wife and my daughter over the summer that I can afford to, work a little bit harder when the iron's hot, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess when it comes to business and when it comes to reselling, I think we all can be a bit more fluid, and just, hey, maybe I am a niche seller, but I am going to pick up sealed Pokemon games that sell for $8,000 that are only $5 at this yard sale. When I was super early into YouTube, I had this experience where I was in a Las Vegas thrift store, and someone came up to me and they're like, "Oh, hey, are you Jride?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he like hands me this. He hands me a Pokemon video game and a baseball bat. The bat was worth like $400 and the video game was worth like $200. I'm like, "Why are you giving me this?" And he's like, "Oh, this is out of my niche." I'm like, "Dude, your niche is making money, bro. Why are you just like, like don't just hand me $600. Like go hand your wife $600. What are you doing, man?" He's like, "Oh no, I'm just a clothing seller, so I'm just gonna stay in my lane." Like, I understand the principle, but like maybe the bat, I can understand the bat. Like maybe you don't know how to ship it. Maybe you don't know anything about the different lengths and stuff like that, but it's printed all over the bat, drop 11, 33 inches, 24, ounces. I don't know. Maybe you will run into some issues and snags, but especially the Pokemon game that's sealed and has a barcode, go get your money, man. Like, I don't know. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, this year when I did garage sales, I was really picky, but I definitely wasn't saying, oh, I'm only going out garage selling to find clothing. But what I did was I found items that didn't stress my current inventory storage. I found items that Didn't take a super long time to test or ship.
Mhm.
Like point and shoot cameras is a great example. I sold a lot of those because they sell really quick. They're very
Yep.
easy to test. There's not a lot that can go wrong with them. I mean, most of them do actually work. And
Especially
they're
from
also,
yard sales.
easy to ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me think of another example. Another example is golf clubs, because I do like to golf. So I already have the
That knowledge.
knowledge of what makes a good and bad golf club. So I don't have to sit there like researching every single little detail. Like if I see a full set for $20 and it's all, less than 5 years old name brand clubs, like, I don't have to research that. I'm just going to take that and, take out some of the nice clubs, put them in my bag, sell stuff from my bag, and make a little money and upgrade my own set.
Yeah. In worst case scenario, it's not as good as you thought, and you just sell it on Facebook local for $50, and you got $30 in your pocket.
Exactly.
Well, man, I think this went well. I think a lot of tips, a lot of good.
You want to do some high dollar sales?
Oh yeah, we were gonna do the top 10 sales of the week. I'll do 5 and you do 5. So I'm just gonna go into my 7-day analytics and then sort.
Are you starting with 5 or are you starting with number 1?
Let's start with number 5, and then we'll go one each.
Okay. All right.
The problem is my wife and I just recorded that podcast that just came out yesterday, a few days ago. So a lot of these are. So I'll just do the ones that aren't in that list that we did.
Yeah, do like just some good ones that you didn't share.
Okay. So number 5, I got some women's on cloud running shoes. I paid $10 for them at a yard sale. They sold the day I listed them for $50 plus shipping, and I did the little 1 pound 12 by 12 by 12, and they sold for $62.08 shipped. Sounds
Nice.
pretty good. Yep. What about you?
So speaking of those Kuji-like sweaters, I just sold one last week. It was the brand Brandini, which I'm sure you've seen at the thrift store, is not a good brand.
Yeah.
Not a good brand at all, but it had that awesome 3D chunky knit, just like this. It wasn't super colorful. It was more like browns and creams. But even a non-Kuji one, it was not wool either. I think it was just like acrylic, so it wasn't even an elevated material. And that still sold for $60 plus $9.95 shipping.
Nice. Next up, I have a Brookstone alarm clock. The majority of alarm clocks are useless because of these things, but again, you just got to look for the ones that have special features or have cultural relevance, things like that. Like the Back to the Future alarm clock, you can find that exact alarm clock in thrift stores, and they sell for like $200-$300 just because of Back to the Future fans. But sold this Brookstone. This is a time smart self-setting. So it just like you can there's some sort of technology that people are after in it. Not even 100% sure. It sold for $50 plus shipping. Got that one at a thrift store for like $3 or $4. Can't remember exactly. And that one sold in under a month as well.
Sweet. I sold a pair of Nike Air Max 97s. The thing that kind of made these stand out to me is they were in the triple black colorway. And this is just kind of an interesting note. I sold them for $74 plus $10 shipping. And that price is actually very intentional. $75 and more, they would have gone through the eBay Authenticity Guarantee program. And I knew these were authentic. I had no problem sending them to be authenticated. But what I realized is the comps were just right at $75. But the listings that were 75 and more, the buyer was charged $15 in shipping to go through that process, and it delays the delivery of that item. So it's less desirable for the buyer because they're waiting longer to get their item, and that shows in the estimated arrival date. So what I did is I listed mine for $74, $73.95, because then it wouldn't go through that. I could charge $10 shipping, which they cost I think $8 or so to ship out. So I was able to get that sale in just a day, because I basically undercut the market without selling mine any cheaper than everyone else was selling theirs.
So I'm convinced that that's why like YouTube reselling content and podcasts exist, is because of that little nuance that you just explained. Because again, I stand by it. Find really good items and then research about those items and see what people are willing to pay for them and list them at that price, and that's reselling. But then there's, oh, well, if I would have made it 75, 76, $80, then it would have increased the shipping by $5, which is a big deal. And it would have taken probably 16 to 30 days to get to them instead of 2 to 5. So I'm going to drop that price a little bit. Good stuff. I also sold a Guitar Hero guitar, Les Paul Red Octane Edition. It sold for $70 plus shipping. Put that as 2 pounds, 12 by 12 by 12. Then I shipped it pirate ship through UPS. It charged the buyer, I think, like $15.85. And then shipping for me was like $14.30. So that was dope.
Sweet. Was that like a Xbox 360 where it connects automatically?
Yep. Nice. So no dongle needed for the PlayStation.
Nice.
Okay. A little bit of nuance there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to decide. I had like a few written down here. What was like most relevant to our conversation today? Okay, so I guess my next best sale, I sold a Patagonia Goose Down puffer jacket. They call their Goose Down puffer jackets the down sweater. That's what they call them, which I don't know why they. Maybe back in the day, that's what you would call it, a sweater instead of a jacket, and like they just stuck with it because they're relatively older company. But it actually sold for $75 on Poshmark, which is actually pretty low. But one thing I talk about on my channel is if you have a good enough item, even if there's something wrong with it, if you have realistic expectations for the item, it can still be a good item. Yeah. When I bought that item, I saw that in perfect condition, they were selling for $140 and we were just getting into the season. This one had a hole in the shoulder and it had dark. Have you seen those puffer jackets where it just gets like a dark stain? I don't know if it's like actually a stain or if it has something to do with like the material where it just is randomly dark in certain areas. Yeah. If you sell clothing, you know what I'm talking about. It's like on a lot of puffer jackets. It's something to look for because it does look bad once you get it under your photo lights. But it had those pretty much all over. But I knew that that was such a good item that I could sell that for over 50% of what the actual value is. And it sold in a day, was returned. I listed it again. It sold in a day again on Poshmark where it can't be returned. And it was still a really good sale for my business, even though it was a flawed item.
Yeah, same with like digital cameras, for example. There's a lot of cameras that I'll buy at $10 no matter what, because even if it doesn't work, they sell for like $35 for parts. Like Canon ELPHs and things like that, they sell for hundreds of dollars in working condition. And even if they don't work, I do that with DVD, VCR combo players all the time too. If it's like a Magnavox and it's $10, I buy it no matter what, because even if it doesn't work, I'm going to be able to get $50 for the parts for it. So same situation there. I'll combine this last two because it's kind of funny. So I got a Vitamix blender mixer, and I parted it out. So I sold the base separately, the pitcher separately, and then the lid to the pitcher separately. I sold the base for $80 plus shipping, and then like 6 minutes later, I sold the pitcher for $30 plus shipping to the same buyer. So I'm obviously going to combine it, knock off a little bit off of the shipping. Sometimes I'll sell something complete. Sometimes I'll part it out. Honestly, sometimes it just depends on my mood. Sometimes it depends on, if you can combine shipping, you're typically going to make a little bit more money. So a lot of times I'll part something out and I'll make more money overall, but it's more work. And then sometimes I'll just be like, oh, it sells significantly faster as a whole. And then sometimes, especially with kitchen appliances, small kitchen appliances and equipment, parting it out makes it sell significantly faster or significantly slower. So I take all of those things into consideration. But the better the brand, the more I typically part it out. And Vitamix is one of the best brands. So Sold the base. It's the Vitamix 5000 Total Nutrition Center blender. Base sold for 80 plus shipping. Pitcher 30 plus shipping. And so yeah, made over $100 on that $7 purchase. And I still have the lid that'll sell for like $30.
Nice. For me, I don't sell a lot of hard goods anymore, but I probably will be next spring and summer. But for me, how I break it up is how easy it is to ship. Because I'm so used to shipping clothing and I have that time down, I only spend about 30 minutes 3 times a week shipping. So for me to spend 15 minutes packaging one thing is just such a huge in percentage of how much time I'm using. So for me, if it's easier to ship it as one unit, I try to do that if I can. And then if it's easier to ship as parted out, I do that if I can. Or same thing if it comes to testing. If it's a thing that requires a lot of testing, I'm just going to sell it deconstructed because a lot of those parts don't need tested. The blade doesn't need tested. The pitcher doesn't need tested. It just is a pitcher. Is it cracked or not cracked? Okay, I tested it.
Yep.
But that's a cool, nice sale there. I've never found a Vitamix actually.
No, I found them pretty often.
Okay, so my last 2 sales. Do you talk about retail and online arbitrage and stuff in your channel now? So this is a little online arbitrage sale. Can't give up the source, but I bought 4 Howler Brother Gaucho shirts. These are a great thing to be on the lookout for as a clothing reseller or any reseller because these are one of the best clothing items. Not one of the best, but it's a very good clothing item. But they are lightweight woven pearl snap or other, sometimes it's not pearl, but another snap shirt. And it will say Gaucho snap shirt right in the back of the collar. And they usually have big embroideries right here on the chest, right above the pockets, where like the yoke would be for a Western shirt. Instead of that, they have embroideries right here. I bought 4 of them for $42 each. And I sold 1 for $85 plus shipping on eBay. And I sold 2 on Poshmark for $90 plus shipping. And I have 1 left. So I bought 4. I've sold 3 and they were only listed a week ago. 1 for 85 and 2 for 90 plus shipping.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I lost you, so I can't hear anything that you're saying, but hopefully everyone else can hear.
Hopefully I'm not canceling you.
Yeah, I still can't hear you, and hopefully I didn't cut you off either, but sweet.
No, you're good.
I guess that is the universe kind of telling us to end things. Hopefully this is part of the podcast. I'll take a look at it when we edit it, but really appreciate you being here, man. It was a really good time talking to you. You brought a lot of good stuff. I hope this is entertaining, but more importantly, I hope it's impactful for the community. So I'll appreciate you, man. I can't hear anything you're saying, but I'll see you later, man.
Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Bye.